So here is a System 6 MPU and driver board combo. We've also got the power supply and soundboard. But the MPU here had already been kind of gone through. Somebody had replaced the sockets. They did skip the 6802 socket. And it looks like they pulled the 5101 and actually pulled a trace that has been repaired underneath. What I did is I installed NVRAM. I also installed a new socket here for the CPU. The 74LS02 had a little bit of corrosion, so I replaced the 0.01 capacitor as well as the 74LS02. Both of those have been socketed. Excuse me, we replaced the filter capacitor, and then all all 6 of the 0.156 headers here on the board, as well as added a blinking indicator. The driver board here, we've got a blinking indicator as well. The 40 pins had already been swapped out, but what I did is I swapped out the resistors here in the switch matrix. So these are all 0 ohm resistors now, just in case if this is ever put into a System 7, it's completely fine. Swapped all the 0.156 headers here, replaced the filter capacitor, and this board came in with the 3 coils we're locking on, which was the 3 special solenoids, 2, 3, and 4, as well as the flipper ground enable was enabling right there on power up. So looking through the schematic, it all traces back to IC8, which is a 7402, and every single output on this 7802 there, or 7402, was there was no signal. And so I went ahead and pulled it, put it into my tester, and it immediately had tested fine. At my little chip tester here will show an error whenever there's an error on the chip, or it'll show, whatever chip number that it is reading, and it read that it was a 7402. And so I had replaced the 2 N4401s, thinking maybe, all those had went out, and we're pulling down the outputs of the 7402 there. And I reinstalled the 7402, and again, all 3 of the solenoids were locking on, as well as the flipper ground enable. And I pulled the 7402, put it into my tester, and it tested as an error, and then yielded another good test after that. So I went ahead and just replaced the 7402. I did, however, put that back into the board, and it was working. So it's something that I don't think I'll ever get the answer to. But either way, we did replace the 7402, and it's now in a socket there. But I'm going to go ahead and get this thing powered up. So as you can see, we've got high score to date, last game played. None of the coils are locked on, which is good. We've just got the power LED and the occasional flasher there at 15. We've got all the lamps working. And like I said, I added a blinking indicator to both the MPU and driver board. And we'll go into test here. So first test being displays, cycle 0 through 9. And those are all working correctly. And into lamps, and all lamps are working. And into the solenoid test. So as you can see, the 2 blue LEDs come on, which is the flipper ground enable. And into the special solenoids, which I missed that first one, we'll have to go back to it. But these are all switch controlled as well as computer driven. And these standard 16s, these are all just computer driven here. So there's the number 1. And moving into the last test, which is switch test. We're going to go through diagonally through the switch matrix, testing both rows and columns. And the last switch that registers in firepower is switch 58. And there we are 100% working. Thank you so much. The soundboard for firepower. Excuse me. So basically what I found, well, I'll go over what I replaced first. So we had 1, 2, 3 1UF capacitors, and then 2 1000 UF, a 470, a 100, and a 4700 UF capacitor. Those have all been replaced, re-socketed. Both the game ROM socketed the 6810 as well as socketed the CPU. The 6821 had already been either replaced and socketed or just thrown into a socket at some point. Replaced the 0.156 headers here on the board, and over here on the speech truck. So upon testing this, we were getting all the sounds, but it would not cycle through any of the speech. So going through and testing, data 2, or the data line 2, was not pulsing. It was not doing anything. And what that boiled down to was IC7 here on the speech truck was completely dead. I had erased it and tried to reprogram it. It would take the write at slower speeds, but it would not verify no matter how many times I rewrote the ROM, or reburned the ROM. So we've got a new IC7 here on the speech board. So go ahead and get this thing powered up. And I've got my little makeshift tester. Play through that again, so it's kind of low. And this one will go on for a little bit here. Alright, so all the inputs are working. And we'll go ahead and test the onboard test. So there's all the sounds completely working, and I just wanted to notate I did replace the 10 UF capacitor here on the speech board, as well as re-socketed the 3 ROMs that are used. And just real quick going through, all the sounds are working 100%, so thank you so much. Our last board on the bench here is going to be the power supply, if I can get my leads orchestrated correctly. So this should be unregulated 12, and then we've got a string of 5 volts, and this next one's ground. Yep. And then we've got 5 volts here for the displays, and then positive 100, and then negative 100 here. And since we've got LEDs installed here on the board, what I'll go ahead and do is remove the fuse for the high voltage. But we've got brand new 0.156 headers installed here on the board. We've got the correct diodes installed. The 5-volt filter cap had already been replaced, but I did go ahead and replace the 100 UF 100-volt capacitor here. So we are 100%. All the boards are ready to go back to you, sir. Thank you so much for sending them.